Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue watching 90 Day Fiancé. Let's see what happens this time.
Natalie thought by getting some air and talking this out may help, but I mean, who knows?
So what do you want to talk about?
Do you want to talk?
That's why I came out here. You said you wanted to talk, so what do you want to talk about?
So again, he, I think, wants to talk. He wants to reach out. He wants clarification. I think there's a part of him that thinks maybe this will work out, maybe not. But he doesn't say anything from his wants. He says, so what do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about it? And then she's like, so do you want to talk? So they're back to both with the walls up saying, hey, do you want to talk about this? And what's going on? So I'm guessing this conversation is going to be along those lines.
Last night, the communication between you and me were not healthy. And it's not the way how I want our communication be for the rest of our life. For sure, no.
Yeah, I don't want that at all either.
Okay, so that's good. She's saying, oh, the way we communicated last night, that wasn't healthy, and I don't want that to happen. I don't like that happening. Okay, and he says, I agree. So that's a good start. Let's see if they can both take responsibility for their part. For her, I'm guessing it would be something along the lines of, I was being too accusatory of you. I was assuming you did something wrong, and I'm sorry for that. And for him, it would be, I'm sorry that I slept at my friend's house who was a woman, and I shouldn't have done that, and I should have apologized more for doing that. I want to be clear, I didn't do anything with her, but I am sorry that I did that, and I haven't been very nice about it. I've been kind of insensitive about the whole thing. If they can both say that, then they'll go in the right direction. If they had the couple's therapist, whose office is probably just around the corner, then maybe he could be able to help them with that. But maybe they'll be able to manage it on their own. Let's watch.
Trust is very important in relationship. I feel like we're having some trust issues, communication, and I feel like we need to fix it and go to counselor one more time.
I think maybe you need to go and discuss and get it off your chest.
Eesh. So, but he agreed to it before, so maybe he'll do it again. But there's a pretty good chance that if he had barely one toe still left in the door and now it's completely gone, so he's just like, why would I go to therapy with a woman that I don't want to be with? Who knows? But going to therapy would be great because I just really think it would help. But then he says, maybe you need to go to therapy. This is a very common thing that is said in relationships, often from men who are terrified of vulnerability and terrified of talking about their feelings and terrified of looking like a woman by going to therapy. And they will say, this is your fault. And then women are often internalizing from society that relationships problems are always their fault. And so they will go along with this and they'll say like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess it is all my fault and I'm willing to go to therapy. And then they go to therapy and we have a really hard time changing a relationship with only one person in the room. I've done it before. It can be done for sure. For sure it can be done. But it's a lot easier. It goes a lot faster if both people are in the room.
You got to move past these issues.
I just don't get it. I'm here every day with her. I'm here by her side. I wish she would, trust me more. I don't understand.
Now, he's potentially right about that. If we live in a world where he didn't cheat and there's nothing going on between him and Sarah and it's all completely on the up and up, then from his perspective, which we don't know, but if that were true, then from his perspective, he's like, I don't understand. This happened a year and a half ago, and she's still hung up on this. She's completely convinced that I cheated on her when I haven't. This is crazy talk. No matter what I say, she's just completely, and she doesn't even have any evidence. I mean, I called her from the woman's house. Why would I do that if it doesn't make any sense. So from his perspective, he might be like, I'm normal. She's weird. She needs to go to therapy. Okay, even if that were true, you still can benefit by going to couples therapy. Going to couples therapy isn't saying I'm screwed up. It's saying there's something that needs to happen that a third person can help us communicate about. having a third person, the therapist could go to him and say, because although Mike isn't necessarily to blame in this world for the genesis of the conflict, but he is responsible for the way in which he communicates to her, which actually triggers her. And he doesn't know that. He doesn't know that he's triggering her. And so the therapist would say to him something like, well, how can you soothe her? She seems to be very concerned. She's worried about it. What other things might you be able to say? And as a therapist, I would say to him, maybe you're right, and I can't know. But if you are right, I can see why you'd be very upset about being constantly accused of something that you didn't do. I validate that. And how can you soothe her? How can you make her feel a little bit more trusting? How can you reassure her somehow? Maybe we need to talk more fundamentally about your love and your attachment. Maybe that will help to make her less likely to be worried about this sort of thing. So even if you don't believe that you have any problems, you're like, I don't have any problems, going to couples therapy can absolutely help.
Natalie can either, waste all of her time living in the past, or she could really, appreciate what's in front of her right now, me and her, and we could work on some real.
And again, if we live in a world where he has never cheated on her, then his perspective is valid. He's just like, we have a great time together when we are happy. Now, you could argue that they don't really, because they seem to be fighting about everything all the time. Well, it's an exaggeration. They seem to be fighting about a lot of things very frequently. So there's that. But his feelings are valid in that situation. And it kind of sounds like when he talks this way that he's thinking, I'm not really in this relationship anymore. The last shred I had died. Well, I think there's been a lot of tiny little shreds that have died recently for him. In couples therapy, when she said she was that they weren't in love together, I think that hurt him or confirmed something for him. And then the fight they had last night about the infidelity, I think, was another. If there were, if you can have 5 final nails to a coffin, I think we're witnessing it.
Can you please help me move past?
I can't help you. I've tried to help you.
I need you to help me.
So this is great. Kudos to Natalie for saying that. I need you to help me move past. Can you help me move past it? Now, if he wanted to, which is debatable, then he could. You go, okay, how can I help? How can I help you move past? And then we're in a really functional conversation. But he's saying, no, this is your problem. You need to deal with it, which, isn't very nice. But again, if he's got all 10 toes out of the door, then it would explain this. But even if he didn't, he's been this way from the beginning. He's just like, look, this is your problem. You deal with it. I don't know how to deal with this. Or he doesn't even really say that. He's just like, this is your problem. You deal with it. This is your fault. You deal with it. And again, you could make an argument if he never has cheated that is true, but it's not a very viable way for a relationship to go on. Even if it is entirely her problem, he could be like, okay, how can I help you? And she's like, well, I don't know. I guess maybe if I talk to Sarah, that would help. And he would say, okay, let's talk to her. Let's call her on the phone and ask her. Be nice to her because she's a friend. She doesn't deserve you to yell at her. I understand. There's nothing between her and I. Even if it's not your fault, it doesn't mean you're just like, hey, it's your fault. You need to deal with it alone.
Help me move past.
I can't help you. I've tried to help you.
I need you to help me.
Tell me how.
Trust issues are not solved because I don't have back my ring. I would feel more secure if I have my ring back.
Okay, what other options do you have, Natalie? Because I do not think that he's going to agree to that. So what else could help you with trust?
I'm not ready to give you the ring back yet. You shouldn't have taken it off.
So I'm not engaged.
No, it would be a lie.
What exactly would be
It'd
a lie?
be a lie between us.
What lie?
The lie of everything's okay.
So I'm surprised that she's surprised. Did she think that they were engaged and they were going to get married? Was that her thought until this moment? She's like, so we're not engaged. Like, yeah. How did you? Although I guess she does have a valid reason to be confused because when the mom came, he did completely change and say, yeah, let's get married. And they started talking about getting married. And then he started. So I guess she does have a valid reason given her perspective. But given what's been happening, it wouldn't be unusual for someone in her position to be like, well, I know that we earlier were talking about a wedding, but man, we've been having some pretty big fights lately. So
I gave a lot of pain to him. It was my choice to give ring, not his. Now he's saying we are not engaged. And I feel that he's saying these hurtful things to punish me.
maybe that's possible. It wouldn't be the first time that someone did that, but it's also possible that it is legit. He's just like, I don't think we're good for each other, or at the very least, I don't think I want to marry you. So it's not necessarily punishment. It's perhaps just him revealing his preference.
And it's not okay. I feel like you're manipulating me, honestly, with this ring, with visa, with everything. And it's not okay.
How do you feel I'm manipulating you?
If you're not ready to give me ring, why you ask me to come to another country, commit all stuff, like the whole...
Okay, this is a valid question. I don't think jumping to the assumption that he's manipulating her, but it's a valid question that would be natural in her position. It's like, wait, so you don't want to marry me? Then why did you drag me out here in the first place? What's happening? That's a very viable question, particularly in the state that she is in right now. And the way that it'll be interesting to see what he says here, because I've been wondering from the beginning, and I imagine a response from him that would be truthful, possibly, is, well, Natalie, when I first went out to visit you, I was totally in love with you, but then we had some troubles, and you threw the ring back at me, and I'll tell you the truth, there were days when I was completely done with you, and there were days when I was like, oh my God, we're the best ever. And so I didn't really know what to do, and I thought, well, maybe there's a chance. And so, yes, I told you to come back, or I told you to come to the United States because I thought, well, maybe things will work out. But I wasn't quite sure. I was giving it like a 75% chance that things are going to work out between us. Then we fought more, and we fought more, and we fought more, and I decided pretty recently that, yeah, I don't think we're good for each other. So I asked you to come back, and even when we were talking about getting married a couple weeks ago, I really did think maybe we had a chance, but the things that have been happening the past few days have really told me that we're not good for each other. And that's why I asked you to come out here. So let's see what he says.
Clean, cook for you, make love to you.
I don't expect you to do any of this.
You do it.
You're making it sound like you're a slave or something.
It looks like. I feel like a toy in your hands. Like anytime you can tell me, I'm not ready to marry you.
So given her relational traumas, she's going to this place of he's gaslighting me, he's manipulating me, he's a psychopath, he's a sociopath. There's a lot of narratives that people in this position will generate. And I can't say that she's wrong, but it doesn't seem likely given what we've seen on the show. And why is that? Well, he's not talking about what's going on with him. If he were to say what was going on with him, I'm guessing it would be a story similar to the way I said earlier, that when he asked her to come out, he did think that they had a chance. And it's only been recently that he thought that things weren't going to work out. Or even in this moment, he's just like, well, I'm still 50% sure that things are going to work out, but that's not enough for me to give you the ring back. Just something that reveals. But given the way that he was raised, he either, one, is so terrified of being vulnerable because he learned that that would be rejected by other people, or two, he doesn't even really know what he wants because he's so focused on the other person. That's what a lot of people in this position will do with avoidant attachment, is they're so unaware of their emotional state and they're so unaware of their needs, but they feel kind of a sense, like a distant noise of something is going on with my emotions. Something's going on there. I don't feel good. They'll at least pick up on that. Like there's something bad about the way I'm feeling right now. Well, since I was raised in an environment where I was being neglected all the time, I had to learn to be very independent. So I kind of have a pretty good sense of myself. That's the fantasy. I know myself. I know what to do. And part of that is true because they did have to learn how to be very independent at a young age emotionally, maybe even practically. But they also have this notion that they kind of have everything figured out, whereas other people, so let me back up. When children are neglected early in life emotionally, they're forced to cope with it somehow. And one of the ways is through avoidant attachment, which is to depend on the self and to push away from other people, dismiss other people, avoid other people, and also to avoid your own feelings. And so you're often very reliant on your intellectual mind. And people like this will often feel as though they're very intelligent. And one of the other, and often they can be, but they will also, as they're watching other people around them, they start to judge them at a young age. At the age of 3 or 4, they'll start to look at other people and say, like, you're kind of ridiculous because I'm over here doing things on my own and I don't need you. And it's a way of coping. It's just like, screw other people. Screw everyone. Everyone else is ridiculous. I'm good. I need to depend on the self. And so when you're an adult and you're in this situation, you feel this vague sense of powerlessness and demoralization and upsettedness and distance and sadness, but you don't really have a grasp on it and you're really trying to avoid it. You will focus on the other person because you believe other people are ridiculous. You just have this general template that you apply on everyone, particularly people close to you, and maybe particularly women if you're a man. It would say, women are ridiculous and, she's ridiculous. And, you need to change. There's something wrong with you. And how do we change you? What's going on with all you? And of course, when you do that, it makes the other person really hurt. It feels very distancing. And when you don't reveal your own vulnerability, you come across like you're a psychopath, or what the internet will call a sociopath, because you don't seem to have any feelings at all. You seem like there's just something wrong with you. And when you're interacting with someone like him, it can feel like gaslighting. Because it's like, wait, you manipulated me. I feel like you never loved me at all. Why are we even in this situation? You don't seem to care now, and I don't think you ever cared about me, because Mike isn't telling. He's not saying, actually, I still have feelings for you. I had tremendous feelings for you in the past, but you really, really hurt me, and it killed the last bit of romantic love I had for you. But in order to do that, you have to know your needs, you have to know your feelings, 1, and 2, you have to trust other people with your vulnerability, which is asking a lot for someone with those kinds of relational traumas. And so then he'll walk away from this relationship going, she was crazy, she's psycho, a very common narrative for people in his position. And she'll walk away from the relationship going, he was a psychopathic gaslighter, a very common narrative that will be developed. And neither of them are right. Both of them hurt each other. Both of them have relational traumas that triggered each other and resulted in this. And it just makes me so sad to watch. Ugh. Now maybe they'll pull out, maybe they'll go to couples therapy. Let's watch.
I'm not a toy. I'm a human being. I changed my country for you. I'm totally alone here. And every day you tell me, I'm not ready to marry you. How do I have to feel?
Because everything.
I would never do this to you.
Because everything is not
then
fine,
you shouldn't
Natalie.
have bring me here at all. It's the beginning. It's not only about you.
So he's saying, but everything's not fine, Natalie. Okay, how about you speak from the heart? Natalie, I feel really hurt by you. You really hurt me. And that's why I'm not ready to give you the ring again. I need to know that you're not going to hurt me as much as you have been hurting me. And that would make sense to her, I think. But he doesn't say that. Everything isn't, we need to work on things. That's phrase, very, very intellectual and very surface and very amorphous. What does that mean, we need to work on things? What does it mean everything's not fine? If you speak from the heart, from yourself, you have to know the self, 1, and 2, you have to trust other people with that vulnerability, then people can't really debate with that. If he says, there's something wrong with you, well, she can argue with that. But if he says, you hurt my feelings so repeatedly that it's actually painful to think about spending the rest of my life with you. If he said that, she couldn't debate that. She'd be like, oh, I didn't know that. Maybe that would help. So I don't see this going. As she escalates, I'm guessing he's going to pull away even more, and then we're never going to see him be vulnerable and less likely to go to couples therapy. And I want to point out that the two of them are legitimately and validly hurting in this moment. They're both very hurt. They come across like they're angry or dismissive, but underneath it all is a tremendous amount of pain and disappointment. that if you've ever been in a situation like this, which I'm guessing you have, you know how this feels. It's just like, this person hates me. What's happening right now? Did I do something wrong? No, I didn't do anything. I know I didn't do anything wrong. It's a very hurtful, very terrible situation to be in. I feel bad for the two of them.
Our problems are still there. Try to work on one thing, another thing comes up. Another thing, one after another.
Right. So that's his coded way of saying, I think, I would hypothesize that that's his coded way of saying she's still crazy, essentially. I keep trying to make her not crazy, and she's still crazy. I mean, crazy obviously is a strong word. Maybe in his words, if we were to really corner him, he'd say like, I keep trying to convince her that that I'm not a terrible person. I keep trying to convince her I didn't cheat on her, but she's still in this negative state. She's always so negative. Why is she negative? There's nothing to be negative about. I'm just a normal guy that doesn't cheat. And yeah, I have a beer every now and then. And yeah, I like to eat a steak every now and then. But she's always so negative all the time. I'm guessing that's what he would say. But if I were there, if I was a couples therapist, I'd be like, okay, but your avoidance and your dismissiveness and your distance and your lack of vulnerability is triggering her to be very negative, because when she feels that distance, she feels very sad, and then she resorts to this negativity talk as a way of trying to signal to you to move in, but that pushes you away, and then we get in a vicious cycle. Right. So for her, she's in a lot of pain. She's sad. And if Mike was in connection with his feelings, if Mike grew up in a family that allowed him to have his feelings when he was young, he would probably be crying too. I don't know about Mike's childhood, but I would suspect that inside Mike is a lot of tears that have yet to be shed.
I feel like I'm used. I'm being manipulated by him. I feel miserable and insecure and so much pain he does to me.
Right. I feel miserable. I feel like he puts me through so much pain. I feel terrible. Yeah. And then the conclusion is, why do I feel so terrible? Why is this happening? He must be manipulating me. He must be gaslighting me. He must be out to get me. It feels that way. It's a normal, convenient story that we tell ourselves. We're in a situation and we're like, what's going on? I'm trying really hard. Why is this happening to me? How come this is happening? Why is this repeatedly happening between the two of us? He must be against me. He must be manipulating me. He must be planning to screw me over. That's the only viable explanation for this that I have available to me. Well, there are other viable explanations that you don't know about that your couples therapist, Dave, I think his name was Dave, might be able to help you with. If he was to actually investigate, he would provide you with a framework of understanding why the two of you trigger each other. And the story you tell yourself about he's out to get me would seem less likely to you. All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.